I think it's wrong. It says red.
Okay. Anyway, beginning of Sefer Devarim. Sefer Devarim is commonly known as Mishna Torah. Mishna Torah because it repeats.
It's говорит red, but no numbers.
Is it taping all right? Okay.
No records.
Good. So Sefer Devarim, Mishna Torah. So it begins, Eila Devarim Asher Diber Moshe al Kol Yisrael. These are the words that Moshe Rabbeinu spoke to all the Jewish people, and it mentions different places that Moshe Rabbeinu mentions where Bnei Israel committed Avedot, where they sinned. He uses a remez, he hints to the names. Bamidbar, Aravo, Mosuf, and Porom, and Tofel. So Rashi says, because he's giving them Musar, he doesn't want to rub their nose into it, so he only mentions the names. Tofel. And everybody knows what happened at Tofel, and they all realize, yeah, we remember what happened at Tofel. So,
What was Tofel?
Tofel, Rashi says, what happened at Tofel? Tofel means the mon, that they complained about the mon. Chatzeros was Korach. The Zahav was the Cheta Egel, the golden calf. So, because they're Musar, he only mentions it in a hint form. Now, as he's giving them all this Musar, all of a sudden Moshe Rabbeinu says, you know, I can't bear everything to you, you're so difficult. Then he says, Hashem Elokei Avosechem, Hashem, the God of your fathers, Yosif Alechem Kochem Elav Pomim. He should make you 1,000 times bigger, multiply you by 1,000 times. V'yivarech eschem kasher diber lochem. And he shall bless you all. So it seems very strange, it doesn't fit. So they bring down a story from the famous Chose of Lublin. Chose means the seer. So you're like, I don't know if he had Nevuah, Ruach HaKodesh, from the town of Lublin, Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchok Horowitz. So he was once, had a group of people around him as Hasidim, and he was giving himself Musar. He was saying how he's no good, how he did this mistake, that mistake. And when he was giving himself Musar, the students, the Talmidim, were uncomfortable because the Rebbe was like bashing himself. So one by one, they slipped out by the door. They went to the door, they slipped out. They didn't want to hear it. When he realized that they were leaving, so the Rebbe stopped and he says, everybody who's here, I give you a bracha, you should be successful in business, good health, parnasa, everything. So everybody came back, right? Because the Rebbe was giving a bracha.
What's Musar mean?
Musar means a lecture, telling you all the things you did wrong. So they said to him, you know, where did he learn this from? He says, I learned it from Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was speaking to the Jewish people. He's telling them all the mistakes that were made. Now, for many of them, they didn't make those mistakes. Their father did, their mother did, their grandfather did. They didn't make those mistakes. And Moshe is telling all the mistakes. So slowly, they began to, you know, I don't need to hear this. Why am I here? So finally, when Moshe saw that they were starting to leave, what does Moshe say? I bless you, you should be 1,000 times richer, 1,000 times greater. Everybody came back. So the Chose from Lublin says, I learned it from Moshe Rabbeinu. That's how Moshe Rabbeinu did what he wanted to do. He accomplished everything that happened. Okay. When it says in Megillat Eicha, for example, Al Eila ani bochia, for these I cry, my eyes are shedding tears. So they bring down, Reb Lev Eliyahu brings down that, you know, they once asked, why do people cry over the past? You know, you cry, why the past? So they bring down the story with Yirmiyahu, that Yirmiyahu once met Plato. Plato was a big philosopher. And Plato said to him, you know, it's a building. What do you care? The building is up, the building is down. It's just a building. What difference does it make? So Yirmiyahu said to Plato, you're a philosopher. Is there any question you have that you don't have the answer for? Ask me. So Plato said, sure. And he started to ask him, and Yirmiyahu gave him all the answers.
He wasn't Jew. But
He wasn't Jew.
Greek, right?
He was Greek.
Yeah.
So then Plato said to Yirmiyahu, how come you know all the answers? He says, because my knowledge came from that building. With the building's gone, that's the end of my knowledge. That means the knowledge dries up.
In Beit HaMikdash,
The
right?
Beit HaMikdash. He says the Beit HaMikdash was what we call a conduit. It was the focal point of all knowledge to the world. So Yirmiyahu said to Plato, you see a building of stones, of bricks, what do you care? I see it as a fountain of knowledge. You say, why mourn the loss of the building? I mourn the loss of the knowledge he gave. And Reb Simcha Zissel Ziv, the Alter from Kel, he says, so why do we cry? He says, because even when the doors in Shamayim to Tefillah are closed, the doors to tears are never closed. So even when, the doorway to tears are never closed. It brings down over here a famous Gemara. The Gemara says in Shabbos that there are 5 books of the Torah. Mishna Torah is a repetition. Then the Gemara talks about, in Yoshua, it refers to Sefer HaYosher, the book of the righteous, Sefer HaYosher. So the Gemara says, what is Sefer HaYosher? So one answer to the Gemara is, it's Bereshit, because there are stories of people who are just. Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, they're called honest people, Yesharim. So the book of Bereshit talks about stories of the honest people. It's called Sefer HaYosher. Another opinion of the Gemara says, no, it's Sefer Devarim. Why? Because in Sefer Devarim there's a pasuk. The pasuk says, V'asisa HaYosher v'hatov. A person should always do what's right. Very interesting pasuk. Let me explain to you what that means. Sometimes, according to the law, you're right. But it's not nice. So if you follow the law, that's okay. You're okay. But you're not nice. You're like a menuval b'shut haTorah. You're disgusting, although you follow the law. In Sefer Devarim it says you should always do what's right. Not just what's legal. Do what's right. And therefore the book of Devarim is called Sefer HaYosher. The book of what's right. Because there's so many halachas in Sefer HaYosher, it tells you to do what's right. The Gemara says that Yerushalayim was destroyed because people followed the strict law. There was no gray. Everything was black and white. No compromise. Hashem said, okay, if you're going to be that way, I'm going to be that way to you. So if you make a mistake, boom! Punished. There's no compromise. There's no extenuating circumstances. So we learn Sefer HaYosher, the book of Devarim, to teach us that sometimes we have to go above the rule of law. Let's try to figure out examples of that. Let's try to figure out examples of going over and beyond the call of duty. What is Sefer HaYosher? Okay, I once talked to you about this. Let me give you an example. I'll give you a real example. You've been to my house. I used to live across the street. When I lived across the street, we were renting. I didn't own that house. We were renting. 19 years we rented it. My landlord, which lived right next door to me, they lived in the house next door, were very nice to me. Very good to me. There were many years they didn't raise my rent. And we always paid on time, and we took care of the house. So it was mutual. We were good to them, but they were very good to us. We bought the property across the street, and we started building the house. So my landlord comes to me and says to me, when do you plan on moving? Because when you move, I want to rent the house, right? So I said, I understand that. It depends when we get the C of O. Let's say we're going to move in the summer. That was the plan. We'll move in July, August. So she says, great. Because it's very easy to rent a house July, August, for September. It's perfect. Everybody's happy. Okay. Comes July, August, we didn't have the C of O. So my landlord comes to me and says, are you moving out? She said, you're moving out July, August. I said, well, we don't have the C of O, the certificate of occupancy. We don't want to move without the C of O. Okay, so you're going to stay a little bit longer. I said, yeah.
I know.
How long longer? I don't know. Stay by you. So we stayed September, October, November. We still don't have the seal. She comes to me in November and she says to me, when do you think you'll have the seal? Well, we have one inspection. So I says, I suspect we'll get the CFO in January, which means we'll move out the end of January. So she says, listen, I understand that, but you move out in January, what does that do for me? Who's going to rent the house in January?
Winter time.
It's the winter, dead of winter, the coldest month.
Nobody moving.
Nobody moving in. I mean, people move into Kew Gardens in June, July. They take a job for September teaching in Beis Yaakov, Tiferet Moshe. But you move out in January, and that's your right. You told me in advance, it's November, you're giving me 2 months notice. But I'm telling you, I was so nice to you, and I let you stay, and I didn't ask you to leave. People sometimes have to leave and live in a basement somewhere, whatever it is. Now you move out in January, there's a good chance I'm not going to rent this house until June or July.
At earliest May.
Earliest, May, June, July. Now, I could have said to her, no problem. From a halacha point of view, I don't know you would die. I rented 19 years, you treated me good, but I treated you good. I gave you notice. The fact that you can't rent it out is not my problem.
Yes.
Okay, and I would be right. But I said to my wife, I said, this lady lives on the block. I mean, she's right across the street, one door over.
Tomorrow we'll see her.
Every day we're going to see her. We're afraid to go out of our house. So and you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a house. The rent wasn't that expensive. So I said to her, you know what? If we move out in January and you cannot rent this house in January, we'll continue paying rent. We'll pay January, February, March, April, May, June, until you find someone. So she looked at me, she thought I was crazy. She thought I was nuts. And I said to my wife, you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for the sake of Shalom Bayis, for the sake of Hakarat HaTov.
That's a few thousand.
What's a few $1,000?
Yeah, for 1 month, 2 months.
Well, what's a few $1,000? She's our neighbor across the street. We're going to see her for the next 50 years. So my wife says, where in the Torah does it say to do that? And I says, well, Sisa Hayoshav Atov.
Oh, like meaning over sometimes.
Sometimes you have to do the right thing. Now you should just know, we moved out the end of January. A week before we moved out, someone walked in and said, I'd like to rent this house. Another religious person, and they're renting till today.
You told us.
Okay?
Last year.
So it cost me nothing.
When you do
But I
good
was
thing,
prepared.
when you do good thing, you always come.
There is a concept of Sisa Hayosher V'Hatov. Sometimes you may be right, but it's not nice. And
imagine if you said
nice.
no, what would be then?
Yeah.
She would find right away, but she would.
Right. But you'd be angry.
And you would feel guilty.
And I feel bad. And people who are good to you, you have a responsibility to be good back. That's Sefer Devarim. It says in Sefer Devarim, V'asisa hayosher v'hatov. There's a concept of doing the right thing. The right thing. Moshe Rabbeinu, he gives them Musar. When did he give them Musar? Right before he died. Where did he learn that from? Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov gave the Jewish people Musar right before he died. Why? Because when you tell a person you're doing something wrong, if you die shortly after, they're not embarrassed because they won't see you anymore. But if you tell them when you're young, for the next 30 years, every time they see you, they'll remember that you gave them a Musar shmuz. It's very hard. As a rabbi, you give people Musar. But you don't want to be embarrassing people. And sometimes when you give Musar, it makes peace. It says, V'ochiach Avraham et Avimelech. Avraham gave Musar to Avimelech about the wells that he dug. And what happened afterwards? They made peace. Be'ersheva, they made a covenant, they made peace. Not always when a person tells you did something wrong, does it mean machloket. Sometimes you can give someone Musar, sometimes you can give someone Musar, and it's a good thing, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. Yosef said, Ani Yosef. The brothers understood right away what happened. Yitzchak realized that Esau was not worthy of a bracha. He understood. Sometimes a person can give musar, and it's a good thing, and you're able to give musar, and you're able to learn things from it. You all finished your benching over there and everything else?
Yeah.
Okay. Listen to this. I want to tell you a few things. How was your Tisha B'Av?
Very good.
Good. A little long.
Very nice.
Yeah, nice.
That is the longest day.
It's not very nice.
Well, it was long. It was a long Tisha B'Av.
Very nice.
Did you hear some shiurim? Did you go to some shiurim to listen? You know, there's so many shiurim, you know, online and everything else.
But Gabriel got all day long.
All day long. Did you go?
Yesterday I was full day.
Full day.
My
Okay.
kids going there.
Okay. All right. Listen to this. Listen to this. I want to give you some ideas about Tisha B'Av and some thoughts. When Yosef saw his brothers, when his brothers came, and Yosef was going to reveal himself,
Yeah.
what did he say? Ani Yosef. I'm Yosef.
Yes.
Is my father still alive?
Yeah.
And the brothers were embarrassed, right? The brothers were
What's going
embarrassed.
on here?
What's going on? The brothers were embarrassed. Okay. Then the pasuk says that Binyamin came to Yosef, and they hugged each other. And Yosef was crying on Binyamin's shoulders, and Binyamin was crying on Yosef's shoulders. So Rashi brings down a Gemara. The Gemara says, what were they crying about? Why were they crying? So if you would ask me, I would say, when you see someone, you know, it's emotional, right?
Yeah.
You're crying tears of joy, right?
Long time don't see.
Long time no see. They were real brothers. Yosef and Binyamin were full brothers. Same mother, same father. They were crying tears of joy. That's not what the Torah says. That's not what Rashi says. Rashi says that when they finally, Vayipol al Savare Binyamin, Yosef cried on the necks of Binyamin, and he cried, and Binyamin cried on his neck. So what does Rashi say? That they had a nevuah. Yosef had a nevuah that the Beit HaMikdash in Binyamin would be destroyed twice. So the minute he saw that the Beit HaMikdash would be destroyed, he started to cry, Rashi says. Al shtei mikdasho sh'asidi lios b'chelko shel Binyamin. Binyamin saw that the Mishkan would be in Shiloh, which was in Yosef's portion, and it would be destroyed. He had a nevuah. So he started crying. So think, what?
It's a vision.
The Mishkan in Shiloh was destroyed, the area.
Nevuah is a vision.
A vision. Nevuah means a prophecy, a vision.
And Benjamin said.
So it's so crazy. Think about it. Think about this. They hadn't seen each other for 22 years. Yosef finally says to them, I'm your brother. He sees Binyamin, who he hasn't seen for the longest time. Binyamin is married now with 10 children.
Yeah.
So they hug each other. Right then, Hashem sends a picture of the Beit HaMikdash burning up. And the Mishkan burning up. You know, talk about bad timing. That's bad timing.
Yeah, they want to enjoy each other.
They want to enjoy each other. The family is united again. Of all the times to have such a vision, how could it be? Listen to this answer. Rabbi Kersner gives this answer. He says, think about this for a moment. Listen to this answer. It's an unbelievable answer. Yosef is in Egypt. The 10 brothers come down. Do they recognize him? No. The Gemara says he had a beard. He didn't have a beard. Come on. They didn't recognize him. So Yosef starts giving them hints. You know, he says, I have a magic goblet, a magic cup. I can tell you things about the family. You're the oldest, you're number 2, you're number 3, your wife's name is this, you live at this address. All of a sudden he starts telling them things that if you were missing your brother, and you come to me and you don't recognize me, and I'm your brother, and all of a sudden I tell you things of what happened at home in Samarkand, at Tashkent, you would put 2 to 2 together and say what? Something's fishy here. What happens? Nothing. They don't recognize him. Still nothing. So So Yosef says, I'm going to take Shimon and hide him. Take him away. Because Shimon was the one who said, let's kill Yosef. Of all the brothers, he was the one, and I pick him out. Do they catch on and say, what's going on?
No.
Nothing. They come down a second time. They're now eating lunch with Yosef, supper with Yosef. Do they recognize him? No.
No suspicious.
No suspicion. Then the Medrash says, Yosef says to them, I know you lost a brother, Yosef. I know where he is. I know where he is. They say, really? Where is he? He's right here. And they start looking around. And he says, Yosef, come out, Mr. Yosef. Come out, Mr. Yosef. And the brothers are looking all over. Where, what? They're looking all over. And he's right there. Finally, he says to them, idiots. He didn't say the word idiots, but I think he was thinking that. He says, Tipshim shabolam, idiots. Ani Yosef. I'm Yosef. So Rabbi Kerzner says,
maybe Hashem especially made blind.
He says just the opposite. He says, Rabbi Kerzner says, if your brother is in the room and you're so blind that you cannot see your own brother, that's why the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. He says it's unbelievable, he says. He says it's unbelievable.
So many hints and nothing.
So many hints. Your own brother is in the room. That's called sinas chinam. That is why the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. Because you cannot see your own brother. He says if you cannot see your own brother, he says, that's what the Churban Beit HaMikdash is all about. If the differences are so great that you don't recognize another Jew, he says that's Golus. That's the Churban Beit HaMikdash. That's a terrible thing, he says. You know, the Medrash Eicha says that when Hashem wanted to destroy the Beit HaMikdash in Yirmiyahu, he was the Navi who wrote Eicha. Knew about this. So he went to Hebron and he said to Abraham, Yitzchak and Yaakov, get up! You have to go to Hashem and you have to daven. He wants to destroy the Beit HaMikdash. He wants to send the Jews into Galut. And they go and they daven. So the Medrash says, why did he go to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? Because they're our parents. And they started Am Yisrael, Klal Yisrael. So they went to Hashem and they said to Hashem, Hashem, please, you can't send my children out. They're my children. You can't divide the family. You can't separate the family. You know what Hashem said to them? Family. One doesn't know the other. They don't recognize the other. This guy's in trouble. And you know what this guy says? It's not my problem. But he's your brother. No, he's not. I'm Ashkenazi. He's Bukharian.
That's exactly it.
That's exactly what they say.
Yeah.
Nowadays also.
That's right. And you know what that is? That's Galut.
Yes.
That's what you say? It's not my problem. I'm an American and he's an immigrant. Let him get a job. That's the answer. If you cannot see your brother, that's Galut. So Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov come and they stam to Hashem, please, the family, the mishpacha, the family. Hashem says, no, won't work. Not enough. Because you're not a family. You don't even recognize one another. You don't even look at each other.
Gonna fix this problem?
I don't know. I really don't know. But listen to this. One person goes and cries to Hashem, and Hashem listens. One person went and cried to Hashem, and Hashem stopped and he listened. And he says, I can't change the Churban Beit HaMikdash, but you can stop crying because I promise you, your children will come back. V'shavu banim ligvula. Who was the person who cried that Hashem listened? It wasn't Rachel. It wasn't Avraham, it wasn't Yitzchak, it wasn't Yaakov, it wasn't Moshe, it wasn't Aaron. Rachel. Why? What did Rachel do different than everybody else?
She gave
Name.
the spot to her
She
sister.
recognized her sister.
Her sister, yes.
She didn't say to her sister, "Who are you?
Yes.
It's not my problem."
Yes, sorry.
She said to Hashem, "Hashem, I sacrificed my husband, everything for my sister."
Yeah.
That means when I was in the room and they said, "Where's Yosef?" and everybody said, Where? I saw my sister Leah and I said, "She's my sister. I'm going to give everything to my sister." When Hashem heard a sister gave to a sister, when a brother wouldn't even recognize his brother, he says, "Rachel, you I'll listen to, because you saw your sister. You recognized your sister. You gave, you sacrificed for your sister." Rachel says, it's family. Hashem said to Rachel, if these Jewish people have your DNA, one day they'll recognize their brothers and sisters as well.
Rachel is Yaakov's wife.
Yaakov's wife. But when she gave the signs to Leah, that was to allow her to marry
She gave up
Yaakov.
her marriage.
Okay.
For her
Listen to what it says. As long as you have a problem and I can say, "Who are you?" I don't know who you are. We'll be in Galut. But if I can say, "You have a problem," it's my problem also. We're a family. I don't care if you're Sephardi, Nam Ashkenazi. It makes no difference. We're mishpacha. We're family. And family is family. Then we're Klal Yisrael. Then we're a nation. Then we can have a Beit HaMikdash. Then we can go. Now your question is an excellent question. You know what the question you're asking is? When will that ever happen? Just look at us. Queens, the division. Forget about between Brooklyn and the United States and the world. You know, it's amazing. The divisions, you know. You're from Brooklyn, I'm from Queens, and I don't trust you. You know, or you're from Queens, they're not Jewish in Queens, you know. They're not religious in Queens. Queens is like out of town. And if you come from Muncie, forget about it. We're not going to even look at you from Muncie. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. If we don't see our brothers and sisters, that's Galut. Okay. Now, when the Meraglim, when they cried, so what did Hashem say? Again, Rashi brings us down. Hashem said to the Meraglim, to the Jewish people who were crying, today you're crying for no good reason. Right? You're crying for no good reason. You're afraid to go into Israel. You're crying for no good reason. I'm going to give you a good reason to cry. What happened? The first Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. The second Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. The city was plowed under. 5 terrible things happened on Tisha B'Av. So now, if you think about it, they cried for no good reason. What's not my problem? 3,000 years ago, a group of Jews in the desert cried for no reason. And because they cried for no reason, I'm being punished today with Tisha B'Av. So the question is why? So if you think about it, the only reason that you could say that you cry for no good reason is because we must today also be crying for no good reason. Understand what I'm saying? Every year, the Beit HaMikdash is not built. So the Gemara says, if in our lifetime the Beit HaMikdash is not built, it means that if there was a Beit HaMikdash in our lifetime, it would have been destroyed. So it must be that you and I, we cry for all the wrong reasons. What do we cry about? I don't make enough money, I don't have enough free time, I don't have a vacation. Throughout the year, there's 1,000 reasons why we cry. It must be that we're crying for all the wrong reasons. Because if they're punished, what? For nonsense, correct. For nonsense. I had people come to me, they're screaming and yelling. Why? My wife did the laundry. She didn't fold the laundry. Do you imagine how upset I was? He said, I cried when I came home. Because when I came home, the laundry that was washed and dried was on the bed. It wasn't folded and put away. I cried. So I said to him, my wife very often does the laundry and she puts it on the bed, after she dries it, because she wants to fold it, but she gets busy. And sometimes I'll come upstairs and I see the laundry on the bed, so I fold it.
Nothing wrong.
I don't cry, I fold it. So that's why we don't have a Beit HaMikdash. Because Hashem says, you know why? Because you cry for no good reason. I had a guy tell me, could you believe it? The chol pot, you know what a chol pot is? Where you make on Shabbat chulent? That's an Ashkenazi dish.
Yeah.
But Sfardim like it also.
Very tasty.
We do.
Very tasty.
Cholent.
So the chol pot was still in the sink on Tuesday. It was still in the sink.
Not washed.
Not washed. And I cried, he said. I cried when I saw it. I said to him, in my house, my wife says, I make the chol, you can wash the pot. So on Sunday morning when I get up, the pot is on the stove. We soak it overnight. It takes me 2 minutes. It's soaking already. I put it in the sink and I wash it out. It takes 2 minutes. My wife washes the dishes, so she puts it in the dishwasher. She washes it. My job is to put it away. I don't cry over
Why
it.
not? If people help each other. Why not?
I don't go home and start crying. Right? You don't cry over it. You step up and you do what has to be done.
Don't say ours, say mine.
So
Many people with different sensitive, that's why crying.
So what does it say here? Hashem says to us, what did the Meraglim do? You cried for no good reason. I'll give you a reason to cry. So Hashem says to us every day, when you come home, Shalom Bayit and everything, be careful, don't start crying. Because if you cry for no good reason, I'll give you a reason to cry. The Beit HaMikdash is destroyed. So it was very, very interesting. Don't cry for no good reason. We have to cry for a good reason. Okay? You have to cry for a good reason. It was Tisha B'Av, so yesterday I was listening to different shiurim and I was writing things. I had a very, very disturbing visit on Friday. I have a friend of mine, I told you, a young guy, a young guy, and he came to me a few weeks ago, let's say 2 or 3 months ago, and he came to see me. He wants to write a will. The guy is maybe 40 years old. He wants to write a will. Why? He's not feeling well, and his doctor told him he has something serious. He was on his way to Sloan Kettering Hospital. What kind of a hospital is Sloan Kettering?
Cancer.
So he wants to write a will. So I spoke to him for a few minutes. You want to write a will, you're 40 years old. Let's wait, let's see what happens. He comes back from Sloan Kettering. He's diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, stage 4. Last stage. Which means it's already spread.
Pancreatic cancer itself is very worse.
And of all the cancers, pancreatic cancer is the worst. It's a death sentence. It's a death sentence. 6 months, maybe. Okay. At first he wasn't going to take chemotherapy, then he decided to take chemotherapy. He took chemotherapy a bunch of times and it stopped working. So the cancer came back and is now bigger than it was before. So the doctor sent him for afterlife care called, end of life. So he came to me on Friday, and he said to me that he just wants me to know that he already made funeral arrangements. He went to Schwartz Brothers, and he already told them what he wants, and he already paid for the cemetery and the funeral. And then he told me that he wants me to do the Levaya, and he's telling me who should speak and who should not speak. These rabbis should speak, but he would prefer that these rabbis not speak. I mean, think about it. How many people face death? None of us. None of us, most of the time. God forbid a person dies, they die.
Yeah.
And then the children have to make the arrangements. Here's a man sitting 5 feet away from me. He bought a cemetery plot, he arranged for the funeral home, he already arranged for the Chevra Kadisha to do the Tahara, he's now coming to me, this is how I want the Shiva house, please speak at my funeral. He's 40 years old, he has 2 kids. You know, you sit there and what do you say to this guy? And of course, the chemotherapy is very difficult. Now he's doing a different style. His wife I speak to all the time. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. So I was listening to Rabbi Twersky, Dr. Twersky, Rabbi Dr. Abraham Twersky. He's brilliant. And he was speaking about suffering. And he said that when he started off in medicine, he was just, doing his internship in medicine. And he was still a rabbi. He was called to the hospital. One night he got a phone call from the hospital. Rabbi, we need your services in the hospital. Now, he felt, here I am, I'm a doctor, I'm a rabbi, the world, I can solve all the problems of the world. And he comes to the hospital and there's this little baby who has a heart defect. And he says this was in 1959. And in 1959, they didn't know to fix it. They didn't know how to fix this. It meant that the baby was going to die within a few hours. And the mother is there crying, Rabbi, why? I was pregnant for 9 months. I gave birth to this baby. For what? For a few hours that the baby should die? And he said, I didn't know what to answer her. Here I'm a doctor. My job is to cure people, make them healthy. There's nothing I can do. I'm a rabbi. My job is to answer questions that have no answers, and I have no answer. He says, it was the worst time in my life. He says, I never felt so bad. I asked her, would you like to maybe say a prayer together? And she said yes, and we said a prayer, Tehillim Chav Gimel, Mizmor LaDavid, Hashem Roi Lo Echsar. We said Tehillim together, and a few hours later, the baby died. He says he didn't sleep that night. The next morning he went to his father. His father was a big tzaddik. And he told his father what happened. His father thought for a moment and his father asked him, what hurts you more? What bothers you more? The fact that the baby died or the fact that you couldn't change the fact that the baby was going to die? What bothered you more? That the baby died? Or that you wanted to be God and change nature? And he didn't think about that. But when he thought about it, what bothered him more was that he couldn't change what was happening. He couldn't help. And like he says on the tape, he says, if I was God, I would make the world different. I would make the world without suffering. Like, I'm not God, but if I was God, I would do things differently. Like, you don't know what you're doing. I can make a better world. Now, this is Dr. Twersky. He's a religious guy. He's a very smart man and a very wonderful person, a very warm person. And he's sitting there and he's saying to himself, why? And then I think he went to speak to his grandfather. And he describes his grandfather as being like having Ruach HaKodesh. His grandfather was a very, very learned man, And his grandfather asked a question. He says, the woman who had the baby, is she the same person today, after she had the baby and the baby died, as she was yesterday? The answer is no. She's a different person. She sees life different. She values life different. He says, that's why we're here. We're here to grow. And in English, we use a saying, growing pains. Have you ever heard that saying, growing pains? That growth comes through pain. Nobody ever wins the lottery and grows. Nobody ever grows with a smile on their face. When life is great, people don't change, people don't grow. You know when people grow? When they experience this. When a guy's sitting in my office telling me, I want you to speak at my funeral, that affected me. An hour earlier when a person was in my office telling me how wonderful life was, it didn't affect me at all. Grow comes from pain. People don't grow from happiness. They grow from pain. Okay? Growing pain is what he says. And he says that without pain, we don't grow. So this grandfather said to him, is she the same person? No. She's different, right? She's grown. That's why she's here in this world. We're not in this world to enjoy life. We're here to grow. We're here to change. We're here to be different every day. It's not easy to do it with a smile. Sometimes it comes with pain. But it's necessary. If we can grow with a smile, maybe Hashem won't send pain. But it doesn't work. So I found that very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. One last thought I'll share with you. It's already almost 9:30.
He's so smart to do everything for himself.
Who?
This person who is supposed to die.
You know,
I think he's smart.
He's a very tough guy. He sees the whole world in black and white. Let me tell you an observation. And let me tell you an observation. He was in my office Friday. And we had this conversation. Now, I daven the early minyan Shabbat, 7 o'clock Hashkama. And he usually davens right next to me because he wants to sit next to me and he wants to walk me home. He wants to sit next to me. After coming back from the hospital, after finding that the cancer is growing, that the chemotherapy didn't work, after arranging his funeral and having the conversation with me, was he in shul Shabbat morning to daven to Hashem? Was he in shul? Or did he just stay home and say, forget about it, it doesn't make a difference anymore?
He was in shul.
He was in shul.
He was.
And he was davening.
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Because I don't think I would have been in
His
shul
condition,
davening.
yeah, you don't see it.
You say why not? When he walked into shul and opened up, put on a talit and opened up a siddur,
So strong.
I stopped and I looked and I says, wow. I don't know if I would have done that. He just went through chemotherapy, we just told the tumor is growing, he just told him he probably has 6 weeks to live, that it's going to be a horrible 6 weeks, that nothing's going to help. And he's in shul with the siddur down. You say, why not? Wow. I say, I don't know if I would have. I would have stayed in bed and just said, you know what? Who cares?
Let it go.
Let it go. What's religion going to do for you?
Most probably he'll survive.
What?
Most probably he'll survive.
Maybe. Maybe. God's got to look at that. God got to say, wow. That's pretty scary. Isn't that crazy? That he came to shul. He was down and he walked me home. Now he couldn't be out in the sun because when you take chemotherapy, you're very sensitive to the sun. So he walked me halfway home. Then he asked me. He says, "I can't continue to be out in the sun. It hurts too much. Do I have permission to go home?" I said, "I didn't even want you to walk with me home. I don't need you to walk me home."
It's so nice.
He wanted to talk to me some more and stuff like that.
Very strong man.
Growing pains. Growing pains.
Mirai.
Wow. Very hard. Very, very hard. Okay, to be continued next week. It's 9:30 already.
So that's it, last topic for today.
What?
The last topic now for today.
I can share that with you next week.
Thank you so much. Such a
Thank you very much.
Whatever you did with Joseph and